You have a beautiful entry into the legs, but your opponent rotates out to escape. You're attacking a guillotine, but your opponent rotates out to escape. You're attacking from the back, but your opponent rotates out to escape. Rotation is killing your submissions, and in this video, we're gonna fix it. If our goal is to stop rotation to the left, we can put a lot of weight on the right shoulder of our opponent, making it hard for them to turn left. Or we can take their left arm off the ground, which also makes it hard for them to turn left. So if we're passing the guard and we take a grip on their near arm, it's gonna be difficult for them to turn into us as we secure the guard pass. If we're pinning from side control, we can look to take their near arm off the mat to prevent them from turning into us. If they're trying to turn away from us from side control, we can look for ways to control the far arm or shoulder to make it difficult for them to rotate away from us.
So sometimes if I get this underhook super deep and they're super strong, they'll bridge me to his right. Something I like to do to really mitigate this risk is, regardless of how I'm beating this frame, I really like to put my fist underneath the far shoulder. So now when he tries to bridge me to the right, it's so difficult. And so this is just one way of limiting our partner's rotation.
Now, if you've watched my video on the front headlock, you know that when we get into this inverted front headlock position, the defender is going to be wanting to turn to the side of our overhook. But we can use our leg to take our opponent's arm and shoulder off the mat to prevent them from turning in that direction.
Okay, and I stop the elbow. So when he goes to try to keep going in that direction, the elbow stops him, and then now from here, we can start punching our hands in place.
But sometimes this can be a bit of a race, and it can be hard to get your leg in position soon enough to prevent their turn. So what we can look to do is first control their rotation with our arms by grabbing their tricep and lifting their arm off the mat. But the problem with this solution is we need our arms to apply the strangle, so we can't maintain this control forever. And we need a way to transfer the rotational control to our legs. And now that our legs control rotation, we can use our arms for a different function, such as applying a submission. This, in my opinion, is a very important principle when applying submissions. We need to control rotation at all times, and in this example, there's a clear handoff between the upper body initially controlling the rotation and then handing it over to the lower body to free up the upper body to apply the submission. If we apply the same idea when attacking from the back, ideally we take an initial cross grip when we're on the underhook side, which gives us the ability to trap our opponent's arm with our top leg. However, the major problem with this approach is we have to use our top leg to trap the arm. And if we're on the underhook side, our top leg is what prevents our opponent from rotating towards turtle.
If I have an underhook here and a hook here, Mile can still rotate out of that, okay? By having something on, like an underhook on one side and a hook on the opposite side, if he tries to rotate this way, my arm will stop it. And if he tries to rotate to my left, my leg can curl back and stop that.
To be fair to the attacker Dan here, he is running short on time and he's trying to make something happen. But the point remains that as people get better at this turning escape, trapping arms from the back becomes more difficult because we can't use our top leg to trap the arm and stop rotation at the same time.
The straight jacket controls and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like people used to do a lot more of this?
Yeah.
I think as people got better at turning escapes, this became more difficult.
So just as we did from the front headlock, we need to hand off the responsibility of dealing with rotation from one part of our body to another. Right now, it's difficult for our opponent to turn to their knees because of our legs, but we can't use our legs to trap arms until we control their rotation with our upper body. Right now, you can see Craig does not have a top hook, so Craig's not using his legs to prevent rotation towards turtle. He's using his upper body to prevent rotation by lifting Lachlan's arm off the mat. So after we get our initial cross grip, we can expect our opponent's defensive hand to be responsible and wait for our strangle arm to come in. But this also puts their elbow in our reach. So instead of going for the strangle, we're going to go over the top and grab their elbow, lifting their arm and shoulder off the mat, making it difficult for them to turn to their knees. And now that we've transferred the rotational control from our lower body to upper body, we can use our lower body for another function, such as trapping the arm. And now our arms are free to go in and apply the submission. Now this might be a good time to address the idea that this elbow grip is the same as taking double cross grips. Up until now, I've been talking about lifting the arm off the mat to prevent rotation. And you can see with double cross grips, we are able to keep their arm off the mat, but our opponent is still able to rotate. And I think it's important to note that rotation ultimately comes from the shoulders.
Rotation happens shoulder compared to the feet.
So when Joseph's talking about preventing rotation, he emphasizes the control he has over his opponent's shoulder.
I really like to put my fist underneath the far shoulder. So now when he tries to bridge me to the right, It's so difficult.
So with double cross grips from the back, even though we can take our opponent's elbow off the mat, they can still move their head and shoulders quite well.
And so theoretically, this is good in that I've controlled both arms and I can step over the top and climb from there. My personal experience with this is it's very hard to to control Jacob's head with this. So yeah, if he moves his arms, he makes a lot of space.
This lack of control over their head and shoulders is what allows them to still complete their turning escape. But grabbing the elbow gives us much better ability to control their head and shoulders. So in my opinion, this elbow grip has been a game-changing detail for me that has greatly enhanced my ability to trap arms from the back. For those jiu-jitsu nerds out there that like to study and take control of their training, you can search #straightjacket on the Outlier database, which is the website I made to help you and I study jiu-jitsu more effectively. However, a lot of times after you trap the arm, the battle's not over, because it can be hard for us to use our legs to prevent rotation while the arm is trapped. And currently the primary thing dealing with this rotation is our upper body. So we can't apply a rear naked choke with our upper body because we weren't able to transfer the rotational control back to our lower body. So in my opinion, an ideal scenario when attacking from the back would be one where you can initially control rotation through your legs. Then you transfer that rotational control to your arms, freeing up your legs to trap the arm. And ideally you trap the arm in a way that allows you to transfer the rotational control back to your legs. And the best leg configuration to prevent your opponent from turning to turtle is a bottom side body triangle.
That body triangle is a huge wedge underneath his hips, and it makes rotation in that direction exceedingly difficult.
And if we're able to get here, we not only have the arm trapped with our legs, but we control rotation through our legs as well, which frees up our arms to apply the submission. And this, my friends, is how we make the straitjacket system great again, by having distinct handoffs and responsibility to deal with rotation. Now, to help you and I find examples of how to prevent rotation, I added #rotation_prevention. And we can see this example here of the attacker working towards the back from the underhook side, but he has no hooks. And he's working to take a grip on the tricep to prevent Gordon from rotating in this direction. Why? Well, if we're on the underhook side with no hooks and they turn towards their knees, they're likely gonna escape because our seatbelt is on the wrong side.
With the seatbelt on this side, you can see I'm basically losing all my chest to back connection.
So if we don't want them to turn towards their knees, we can look to control their tricep on that side, making it hard for them to turn in that direction, and we can sit them up and start working towards the back. And in this situation, the attacker uses his arms to display beautiful rotational control as he works to take the back. Now, if we're attacking the back from the overhook side, instead of rotating away from us towards turtle, their primary escape is going to be rotating towards us to get their back towards the mat. So to prevent this, we need to focus on the other shoulder. And you can see Mika takes a grip on the opposite tricep, which makes it hard for the defender to turn in that direction and get their back to the mat. And Mika relaxes a little bit before feeding his other arm in while he climbs up on top to transition to the arm triangle. These are ways we can prevent rotation to facilitate our submissions, but we can also encourage rotation to facilitate submissions, such as using rotation to get heel exposure or locking up the rear naked choke, which is why I added #rotationalattack to the database as well, so you can study ways to use rotation to facilitate your attacks. And if those attacks are leg locks, you can switch it to dark mode. But if we zoom out here, the important idea is we're the ones managing their rotation to facilitate our submissions. And another great example of this is an armbar from mount. The problem that we're trying to solve here is from a position like a double chest wrap, we've created an initial extension in both of our opponent's arms, and we have very good control over our opponent's whole body. But in order to finish an armbar submission, we need to force our opponent's arm into an extreme state of extension, which is difficult to do from this position. So we give up some full body control so we can recruit more of our own body to the task of extending our opponent's arm enough to get the submission.
I'm going to have to give up some of that whole body direct control, and I'm going to have to pull more of myself to a smaller portion of you so I can enhance breakability and strangleability.
When this is done well, it's what makes jiu-jitsu so effective. And we can be as nice or as mean as we want to be. But it's important to understand that by going from a double chest wrap into S-mount, we are giving up total body control, which can lead to our opponent escaping. So it's important that we understand this risk and manage this transition well. And a large part of it comes down to our ability to deal with rotation. When we transition to S-mount, our opponent can rotate towards us with the goal of slipping their elbow down towards the mat. But from what I've seen, this tends to be a less common escape and one that happens when we rush the entry. And if you're watching this video, I think it's more likely you're going to experience your opponent rotating away from you, and maybe even propping up on their elbow to facilitate their escape. And if you've been paying attention so far, I think you can probably guess how we deal with this problem. To prevent rotation when transitioning to S-mount, we can see Gordon lifts up the far arm by controlling the tricep, which makes it hard for his opponent to turn away from him, as he settles into the position and works to isolate the arm. Here we see Meregali initially transferring to S-mount with that control of the tricep, making it hard for his opponent to turn away. But then he transitions to a hug on the primary arm, hoping that his legs will be enough to stop the rotation away from him. But it proves to not be enough, and his opponent's able to initiate his escape by turning away. But Meregali's a smart man and adapts as the match goes on. So the next time he gets to S-mount, he makes sure to leave his arm in a position that controls that far arm and prevents rotation away. But now his opponent pendulums his legs and gets some momentum to rotate in, slipping his elbow down to the mat and escaping. And this is the game we play and the risk we take by giving up total body control. But now, hopefully you understand and are able to manage this risk more effectively.
And so we have to take that risk and reducing control to get to those points.
Now, I apologize, I was planning on discussing leg locks and talking about different ways of controlling the secondary leg to deal with rotation. But this one's already getting long, so that will have to be a video for another time. And if I've made it, I'll link it right here. If not, I recommend you check out this video here on the difference between strangles and joint locks. And of course, if you're a jiu-jitsu nerd that likes to study and take control of their training, there's no better tool than the Outlier database.